All right, why don't we start off with Solo? Let's talk about Solo.
Okay.
I had to coalesce my thoughts earlier because I was talking to my wife and daughter, and I was like, if I have one complaint, if I had one complaint, because I really like this movie a lot, I thought it was fantastic, great, right out of the gate. I'll just tell you that right away. But if I had one complaint about Solo, it would be that the character is very shockingly or strangely or something. He's kind of like naive. He's not edgy. He doesn't see the angles. He strikes me as more like an opportunist than anything else. The way the movie begins, because we start off on Corellia, which is like, I guess it's occupied by the Empire, so it's obviously like it's kind of a shithole. It's what Trump would call a shithole, definitely. And he's like running, I guess he's running low level jobs for like this weird centipede woman or something like that.
Yeah.
Who?
Can I say at the beginning when they start off with a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Big applause, by the way. Big applause in the theater.
There weren't as many people in my theater. Maybe that was probably why. But I noticed that like it starts off with a little more of a crawl than say Rogue One did, because I think Rogue One started with that too, right? Like a long time ago. I think. And then it goes
it might have, but it didn't. I don't know that. I don't know that Rogue One had like opening text. I've seen it a couple of times.
This had more sort of, but
this was giving you some background on what was going, where we are.
It reminded me of Will. You know, it is a time of dread.
Yeah.
It almost the same thing of like, you know, things are bad or something. The Empire rules us. I don't even remember what it said, but and then it goes.
At least you could read it this time compared to like Blade Runner 2049, where it's tiny text you can barely read.
Well, now you can probably, if you have Blade Runner, you can probably watch it on your big screen TV. You probably see everything.
Maybe, yeah. Well, no. Well, it's still kind of small. It still looks.
Oh, okay.
Even at 55 inches, it looks kind of small. But we start off. You know, Solo's doing this crime thing. He's hanging around with his girlfriend, played by Emilia Clarke, very pretty woman who was in Game of Thrones, playing Dionysus. I can't even pronounce her name.
Seeing her as a brunette always throws me off because even on Game of Thrones, it's obviously a wig.
Yeah, that is her natural color, though.
Having that hair, she looks better as a brunette, by the way.
She would have been Mrs. Seth MacFarlane if Seth had played his cards right, but you know
he almost snagged that.
He almost snagged that, you know. But the thing is, I don't know. You can't really get involved with actresses. You know, it's almost completely impossible to have a kind of a meaningful relationship with anybody who's an actor. So, you know, Seth is like, MacFarlane he's a good-looking guy. He's a multimillionaire. He's incredibly smart. You'd think he would be like the ultimate catch, but apparently he wasn't enough. So I think...
Well, then that gives no hope to me, Mr. Safeway guy.
Mr. Safeway. I was going to call you Charlemagne the God, and I was going to call myself Dolph Lundgren for this particular broadcast. But I got to say, I mean, like I was... You know, we kept talking about what we were thinking our theories about Solo was going to be. We talk about it all throughout the Star Wars series that we did. And I had very low expectations after, I mean, Jedi was really kind of demoralizing for me as a Star Wars fan. And I was like, oh God, this is...
Can I just use that as an opportunity to say I actually love The Last Jedi and in fact watched a little bit recently and I'm like, yeah, I'm right. I love it. It's an awesome movie. So there. Now I know that you disagree and that's okay because this is America.
Not only do I disagree, my wife disagrees and my daughter disagree and I'm like, I'm not crazy here, right? This was better than Last Jedi. They're like, yeah. And I said, can you tell me why? And she said, well, my wife said, well, Solo has this a spirit of fun about it. There's a lot of fun happening. It kind of reminded her a little bit of Indiana Jones, which makes sense because Lawrence Kasdan wrote it, and there's a spirit to it that was for me sorely lacking in Last Jedi.
It stays fun until it gets kind of heavy near the end, which I mean we'll probably get to that in the end of the review of like my issues with it, but. In general, it's a fun movie.
It's a great ride, and a lot of people, I don't know why, but for some reason it's not getting the good scores on Rotten Tomatoes. It's getting lower scores than Jedi. It's making less money. It's probably going to wind up a flop.
Oh, I know it is because it's one of those things where it's basically they filmed a movie twice because it was this is what I've heard. It was about 80 to 90% shot by a couple other directors before they the producer, I guess Kathleen Kennedy, said no, you're not doing the movie that we wanted to do, and so they scrapped it and reshot it. I mean, the bad guy in this movie is a different bad guy. They had a different bad guy in that version. It was that the dude that played Omar in The Wire was the bad guy. Completely cut out.
Geez, wouldn't even know who that actor. You're talking about the dude who had the scars that ran down his face. That
Paul Bettany. They
got red. They would. Brown didn't pick up on it, but whenever he gets angry or emotional or intense, the scars tend to deepen in color. Did you notice that?
Ooh, I may have noticed it. That's one of the things where I'm like, and another review that I saw kind of like made that point, and I was like, yeah, you're right. The cinematography, a little bland, a little brown and orange kind of. It wasn't very super colorful. It was kind of murkily shot.
I did notice that it was a little bit murky. It wasn't quite. It didn't really look like high def or anything like that. But I think that might be attributed to the kind of mood they were trying to evoke, which was the Empire under control.
Maybe
or
they
something.
Changed cinematographers when they changed directors. Like Ron Howard said, no, I want to do it.
Yeah, they might have. But it doesn't explain why this movie has only made, I think, $200 million so far worldwide. By that time, Last Jedi came out, it was already made $500 million in the first week, and it's really frustrating because I don't want this to be like some kind of a teaching moment for Lucasfilm, because this movie gets a lot of things right. The story is to me very lean. It's very economical. We follow young Han Solo, his name was only Han.
Yeah.
He applies to join the Empire. To get conscripted into the Empire and become a soldier, basically, I guess like a walk-in enlisted. And then they need a last name for their records, so the guy just makes it up on the spot, Han Solo. Yeah. So he joins the Empire. He starts fighting. Realizes he doesn't like this. He figures out very quickly that Woody Harrelson and a bunch of guys aren't really in the army. They're kind of using army uniforms and pretending they're in the army.
Well, you're forgetting a part. So the reason he joins the Empire in the first place is because at the beginning of the movie, he's escaping with his girl.
Right, yeah.
And then some funny stuff happens when he's trying to get through a little crevasse, and that's actually kind of funny.
Right, yeah.
And then they're about to escape. But the door closes and he gets out, but she doesn't, and somebody takes her.
Yeah, I think it's one of the centipede, bagmen or something like that. One of the people who works for that crazy centipede creature that can't go out into the light, apparently.
Yeah, it's like a vampire or something.
And it's established early on that Han is kind of he's not a good pilot. He doesn't say he keeps saying he's a great pilot, but what I think he's trying to do is just kind of make himself a great pilot by calling himself a great pilot.
Well, he's got the bravado, but he doesn't actually have the skill.
Not yet. No, he's too young, and I actually got to say I think the kid pulls it off pretty well. I think it works in the way that he's not as clever as Harrison Ford played him, because Harrison Ford is much older than this kid when he first plays Han Solo. He's 39.
Actually, the kid in this movie, I believe he was about 28 when he made this, because I think he's 29 now.
Yeah, but he looks like he could probably pass for 25.
Harrison Ford was in his mid-30s when he did Star Wars, so he's basically
late 30s. 70. He was in his late 30s.
The original Star Wars, let's see, I'm trying to do Star Wars math. So in 89 he was 47. So in 77 he was 36, but they made it in 75, 76. So he was about 34 or 35 when he made it.
Might have been, yeah. But he comes across as a little wiser and obviously a sharper and more adept. And we get into his sharpness and his adeptness later on at the end of the Kessel Run sequence, which is just amazing to me. It was an awesome...
Yeah, this checks off all the boxes of what you wanted to see. Is okay, he has to do the Kessel Run. He has to win the Millennium Falcon from Lando Calrissian, and we have to meet Lando Calrissian.
Oh, and, Donald Glover, wonderful. He was wonderful.
I was a little confused because I got up to pee at probably the wrong time, because I got up to pee. I was walking out and I saw the Clint Howard cameo.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Clint
and
Howard.
I'm like, all right. And then I'm like, okay, now I can pee. But I think I missed the part when they actually get on the Falcon, because when I get back, I'm like, hey, the Falcon looks a little different. And then I found out later it's
yes. Fans
had sort of changed it a little bit.
Yeah, he added an escape pod, and fans were like irate when they saw the Millennium Falcon in the trailers and they saw the pre-release design of the Millennium Falcon. They were like, "That's not the Millennium Falcon. This is not the Millennium Falcon." And as it turns out, it is. It's just it's got an extra part that Han never repaired. So, so it winds up being the Millennium Falcon once we get to.
And they kind of trick you of like, oh, this is when he's going to win the Millennium Falcon, and then he doesn't. He doesn't actually win it until the end.
He doesn't win until the end because Lando is a big cheat. He's got cards up his sleeve. He's got some kind of electronic device that produces cards. And Han, I think, suspected that in the first game that he played with him. Because
did you notice that they snuck this in? He calls him Han.
Yeah, and he says
he's
it's
the only one that calls him Han, and it's actually, I think it's kind of a joke because he calls him Billy D.
Yes.
He calls him Han.
Yeah.
And so it kind of fits with, like, why is he calling him Han? Of course, they also mess up Princess Leia's name, too. They call her Princess Leia sometimes.
Leia.
Whatever. But I'm glad that they didn't try to sneak in Princess Leia.
Yeah. They
could have.
They snuck in like the most left field character you can think of in a story about Han Solo. They snuck in Darth Maul, who has obviously aged, and they show him to be alive. Now, I told you I had this theory. That's why I think Snoke might still be alive, because if they're showing Darth Maul, and we saw Darth Maul get sliced in half.
But he fell down a pit, whereas Snoke, when he got sliced in half, they literally like poke his body and he's like still dead and he falls over almost for comedic effect.
He does kind of fall over, but you know, I think if you just sewed him back up and stuck him in a bacta tank.
But then he's on that ship and then the ship blows up.
Yeah,
remember?
Maybe somebody took. I don't know. We don't. You had a question about Luke Saber, remember? Luke Saber from that time.
I still don't know where they got it. I still don't know where they got
but
that.
But I appreciated the appearance of Darth Maul because it was an acknowledgement of the Phantom Menace. And Darth Maul was one of those characters I thought was really awesome. And then he goes and died. He's like, you know, how they set up these really cool characters and then kill them, like Boba Fett, Darth Maul, and then Captain Phasma.
Well, they kind of do that in this movie where they
Phasma might come back too.
Let's hope. Give her something to do.
Yeah.
I think that they kind of do that in this. They have a sort of a funny character that's like, it's sort of a CG character that he's doing the sort of look like an adult thing where it's like two kids in a big suit trying to look like an adult, except he's doing it in sort of he's like weirdly shaped, so he's trying to look human, but he's not really. Yeah. And it's actually I found it's actually the voice of Jon Favreau.
Yeah, Jon Favreau. I saw his name in the credits.
He's kind of Star Wars connected in that he's going to be doing a Star Wars series on Netflix, or not Netflix, on the Disney streaming service that we're eventually going to get.
Oh. Yeah.
And then you have that other character, Woody Harrelson's girlfriend.
Woody Harrelson, that was unusual.
She comes in and then she's gone.
Yeah, she kind of like. I mean, this is supposed to be okay. It's like a train heist that they're doing, and it's pretty cool. It looks great, and a lot of people had some complaints about that. And it's all for
nothing. It's like the thing that kind of gets me. It's like story-wise, it's kind of like all for nothing because the people that they were fighting over the unobtainium. They were the good guys, kind of. Well, so to have her die for something that wasn't really important, and then the thing blows up, and then the stuff blows up because they drop it anyway.
That's where I think some of the backlash is coming from these feminists or possibly SJWs who wanted like stronger female characters and everything, and it's kind of hard to do that when it's a movie about Han Solo.
I would counter with the backlash is actually coming from the butthurt bros, because they're like, I'm not even going to see this movie, and this movie sucks even though I haven't seen it. I hate The Last Jedi. I hate all the social justice warrior. I'm going to boycott. I hate this movie.
The thing about it is, all you have to do is just look at the names attached to the project. I mean, I don't really care about those other two. I looked at their credentials, and I'm like, no. I mean, they did the Lego movie, and they seem to specialize more in animated movies.
No, they specialize in 21 Jump Street and 22 Jump Street are really they're really good movies. Okay, they're really fun. They're like laugh out loud funny.
Yeah, but the thing about it is 21 Jump Street was never a comedy. It's like they took something.
Well, it was when they made it. When they made it,
something that was serious. I mean, 21 Jump Street was a show I really enjoyed because I loved all the characters. I loved the premise of it's kind of like this Charlie's Angels premise of you get people who look right and then you put them in a job. Like you got young looking people playing high school.
Were you even a fan of the Richard Grieco spinoff?
I was not a fan of Booker, no. And I didn't really care for Booker, but I enjoyed Penn Holland Hansen and Holly Robinson and people like that. Yeah. And I liked it was a drama. It was a cop drama, but it was about young people, so it was people that we could connect with. I mean, there were a few stories in there that were pretty controversial, like but to turn it into a goofy comedy, I thought was a little too much.
They're good. They're for me. I'm like, well, if you can do that, I mean, they did that with Land of the Lost too, and I love that. So
Land of the Lost, I don't know, that was goofy, but I mean, like the show, I guess they kind of took it seriously, but it looked really camp because of the quality and everything.
Yeah, it was actually really good quality for the time, but yeah, it was like.
But the movie, you have Will Ferrell in there, so it's going to be goofy and a good cast and everything.
And
couple
let's
of
face
funny
it, let's face it, Matt Lauer can suck it.
But for me, I mean, you look at the name Lawrence Kasdan, he's the one who truly fleshed out the Han Solo character back in the old days. Plus, he wrote the first Indiana Jones movie. This is a guy who knows this kind of a character.
He's also made some stinkers.
But he's a fine filmmaker. I mean, like, Body Heat, The Big Chill, Silverado, I Love You to Death, which is a personal favorite of mine.
I remember that.
There was a Stephen King movie that he did called Dreamcatcher, which I thought was really good too, with Tom Jane and Morgan Freeman and people like that.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I enjoyed it. I did. The Shit Monster? I mean, come on. It's a shit monster. But it's, it's like a body snatcher scenario. I love that. And I've always found him to be a very talented filmmaker, and this is a character that he knew for years. I mean, he knew it, and he had great connections with George Lucas, and I feel that Lucas also did recommend people like Kasdan, and Ron Howard's a friend of his too.
I think that this would have been about. I mean, if they were kind of like, I do wonder, like, what movie when we'll never see the Lord and Miller cut. We'll never see it. It may have been destroyed for legal reasons, for all we know.
Or it might just pop up on the Blu-ray in an Easter egg film.
No.
You don't think so?
No.
I mean, they did.
No matter how much
you should see a lot of the changes and scenes that were cut out of, let's say, Star Trek: The Next Generation. In their Blu-rays, the scenes are available, and including like people who were or recast, parts that were recast, deleted scenes.
I think that like what they were. I think if it had been a comedy, it might have been not as action packed as it was, because it was a big fun action movie, which I enjoyed. But I do wonder it felt like a Ron Howard film in the sense that it felt very good, solid, entertaining, decent, but it didn't necessarily have an edge.
Well, Ron
I'm
Howard,
just wondering if the Lord and Miller would have had an edge. What they should have done, and this is my theory. You have Lawrence Kasdan writing it, and that's great. Have his one of his sons directed, Jake Kasdan.
I don't know about that.
He's done a lot of movies. He's done lots of Zero Effect, Orange County, Thank You for Smoking.
Well, yeah, those are fine movies, but they're not Star Wars movies. I mean,
no, but they're
have
not. But I'm saying, I'm saying, have him come in. It could be his big break to do a big movie. He's got an edge. He can kind of do like fun comedy thing. He can maybe help co-write it.
He did a movie called Zero Effect, right?
Yeah, great movie.
Yeah. I vaguely remember that movie.
Any movie with a fridge full of tab is my kind of movie.
Well, what I wanted to see, I see. Well, first, Ron Howard. I want to talk just a little bit about Ron Howard. I've always enjoyed his work for the most part. His strength is in comedies involving relationships. Like Night Shift is one of my favorites. That was one of his first movies, I believe. And and also Splash, wonderful movie. And Gung Ho, I do remember enjoying. I need to see that again.
A movie that could never be released today.
I guess not.
So much.
And I mean, like Apollo 13, I really enjoyed too.
Yes.
Also, and let me see. Didn't like Far and Away. Not a fan of that, even though it was probably about my descendants or my ancestors rather. And I don't know. Backdraft could have been better.
He did. He won an Oscar for the Beautiful Mind. is like somewhat historically somewhat inaccurate.
I don't know that I've
really good movie.
I don't know that I've seen it. Was that Russell Crowe? Is that who?
That's a Russell Crowe, or he's mentally ill.
He's mentally ill.
He's seeing things, and he kind of basically sees the spirit of Ed Harris.
He's got a long-suffering wife or something.
Yeah. And he did a Cinderella Man, another Russell Crowe. That's really good.
Okay. Yeah. He also did what? He did something. Oh man, something about a what was it? Like they were on a boat. It was a period piece. They were on a boat.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. It's the one with, it's got Thor in it. I know what you're talking about.
It's got visual effects. It's like a big visual effects movie.
Oh, and he did right before that. He did this movie called Rush, where it's about race car drivers, also with Thor. Mm-hmm. And that's really good. So he's a really good, competent director.
Willow. I forgot about. Well, I'm not a fan of Willow though. Willow, I'm not a fan of.
His biggest hit was probably Da Vinci Code.
Right. And the sequel.
That might still end up being his biggest hit. Like, you would think this would end up being his biggest. Maybe he did The Grinch.
That's right.
Which I'm a little cheesed off about. Of like that had the potential, but that was a very middle.
I feel like they spent way too much time in the backstory of The Grinch.
Well, that was the point, because it's a half-hour special.
I know, but that's my issue. I mean, like, if you want to, I don't know. With The Grinch, I felt the less we know about The Grinch, the better, because that's sort of the appeal of the story.
You have Jim Carrey, you got to use him.
Yeah, I know, and he costs a lot of money, but I enjoy his work. I do enjoy his work. He's not somebody I like. He's not like one of these guys. Like, I don't know. He's not like a what's the word, auteur. He's not anybody you go, hey, let's go see the new Ron Howard or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, even Spielberg is kind of losing that clout these days. But
I have yet to see Ready Player One, so it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
Spielberg.
it's not anything that you're. It's not getting you out of your house to see it. You know.
No, it almost did, but I realized, it'll be out. Hell, it'll be just as expensive for me to buy it, and I'll have a better experience in my home.
But I feel that both Ron Howard and Lawrence Kasdan are operating on the level of entertaining the audience,
yes.
and I felt that Solo. That's what it really wanted to do, was entertain the audience. I don't think Rian Johnson has that kind of capability. I think I
was entertained, but I was not blown away.
There was some really wonderful moments involved Chewbacca.
Yes, those are the best moments of like.
Yeah, his what do you call his first meeting with Chewbacca, and he tries to speak.
For a half second, I thought it was going to be a Rancor, because they kind of like.
That's what I thought too, but my wife figured it out right away.
And I'm like, it's going to be a Rancor, and it's like, no, it's Chewbacca. Yay!
Yeah, he's all covered in mud. He's screaming and yelling at him.
The great thing is they have another actor playing Chewbacca that's a lot younger and can move around, because Peter Mayhew can't.
Yeah. He's so
he's more. He can move around.
Technically, even though he's like how many years, 400 years old or something like that, he's still younger than he was. So
he's 190.
Something like that. Yeah. So Han is trying to communicate with him. He knows a little Wookiee.
There you go.
So he's speaking in broken English that really doesn't make that much sense. So Chewie picks it up. So they work together to get out of there, and then they become partners, and it's really wonderful. I like how that was put together. It was very nicely done, and I do like that they kind of confirm that Han does understand Chewie. I mean, but probably what Chewie is saying to him is probably the same kind of broken English that he was spitting back at Chewie when he was trying to tell him, he was like, I have a plan for freedom or something like that. We will escape or something. And then there's a wonderful shower scene where they're in the shower together. Yeah. It was,
I gotta say, this reminded me of, you remember the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles TV show?
Yes. Matter of fact, I think Kasdan wrote the pilot of that one.
It was a really good show. It offered new insights, but it didn't blow you away. It was like, this is solid entertainment, and I'm learning a few new things, but I'm not being blown away. And of course, that's why it got canceled, because it wasn't.
I'm a little disappointed because they left it open for a sequel, and I would love to see a sequel, something that you can add to this.
Yeah, he starts talking about there's this bounty hunter on Tatooine, or there's this mob guy on Tatooine, and I'm like, oh, okay,
yeah, it's like, we'll do some jobs for him. Nothing's going to happen. Everything will be fine. Little does he know. I mean, but they were a little deceptive about the whole thing, because they said that this would lead directly into A New Hope, that it would lead directly into, Adventures on Tatooine and the exploits.
Well, eventually it can. He's got like 7 or 8 years before he can get there.
So they pull off this train heist. They or they're trying to deal with these people they call marauders, which are led by this young lady with red hair and freckles.
Yeah, somebody referred to her as Maya Rudolph.
Right, Maya Rudolph.
And I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
And it all goes to hell, but then they go to Kessel, and they go into the spice mines.
Talking to the bad guy, and like, my goodness, boy, does he give them multiple chances.
Yeah.
After that first mess up, I'd say, you're dead. I'd be like, okay, I got to cut my losses. These guys are just too much trouble.
Well, he doesn't. I mean, don't they have an arrangement where, they deliver the stuff, then they get paid?
He's afraid.
Right?
He's afraid of the Crimson Dawn, which we find out later is Darth Maul. So
yeah, Crimson Dawn, which apparently has an affiliation with the Empire.
Maybe.
And this guy, Paul Bettany's character. Now I remember him from something, and I couldn't tell you what it is. But I know the
many
face.
Things. Well, he plays. He's in A Beautiful Mind. I know that. He's in that. If you want to go back, he's in that movie called Wimbledon. He was in that one.
Don't really.
He was
know.
He plays Vision in.
Well, he's in a bunch. Okay, I'm looking at his
bunch of things.
His CV here, and it's a bunch of movies I haven't seen. It's a lot of Marvel comic book movies that he's in.
Yes. Well, he plays Vision, and he's like all red and.
He was in a terrible Johnny Depp movie called Mordecai. He was in something called Legion.
Yeah.
He was in Inkheart, which I've heard of. I think I might have seen that. Secret Life of Bees. This sounds like stuff. Oh, he was in Da Vinci Code too. I guess he's a friend of Ron Howard's.
Yeah, he's a friend of Ron Howard.
He was in Dogville, which I believe was a Lars von Trier movie.
Yeah, a Lars von Trier depressing movie, like all of his.
A Knight's Tale. I remember A Knight's Tale. I saw that. No, he's not like the kind of guy who he doesn't. I don't know. He doesn't really stick out for me. Well,
he usually plays villains or snotty people or snotty villains. That's usually how he plays it.
Okay. Well, okay. And then, so they decide to go get raw, unrefined, whatever this stuff is called.
Unobtainium.
And then they take it to a processing plant. Lando kind of betrays him, even though he's in for a cut, but he steals away in the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
Han Solo finds out the true identity of the Marauders. They go to deliver the stuff, and then it turns into a James Bond movie where everybody's double-crossing everybody else. Woody Harrelson double-crosses him. Amelia Clark double-crosses Han, then double-crosses her own boss, and then double-crosses Han again some more. And then she just kind of takes off. And Han goes and finds Lando, challenges him to another game of cards, and eventually. But just talking about the Kessel Run thing, there's a great bit there where he finally figures out physics and how he can turn the Millennium Falcon a certain way to get through this thing that's collapsing, and we get Ron Howard does this close up on his eyes trying to figure it out, and that to me encapsulates the character of Han Solo. Han Solo is a guy who is guessing, and he manages to succeed. So,
yeah.
And also, I mean, like, it was great. We got the John Williams. John Williams is back doing the score, and he combines two great themes. He combines the theme from the Escape from the Death Star in the first movie in Star Wars with the TIE fighters and Han and Luke fighting off the TIE fighters, and then he combines it with the asteroid field sequence from Empire. It was very nice.
Actually, if you look at you can get the soundtrack recording. It's actually music by John Williams, but adapted and orchestrated by John Powell. So it's basically John Williams came in, probably jotted a few things.
He wrote it from his deathbed, and he had some runners doing.
I think he's still going to do episode 9. I think.
Yeah,
I don't. He basically went in. He probably just went in there, much kind of like, I think it's probably like a lot. I mean, it's just a deep cut, but he did like some themes for Superman 4, but Alexander Courage did most of the music for that, where he just reused a lot of his themes. He said, well, here's a Nuclear Man theme, here's a this theme, here's a that theme, here I'll rig up these things.
Yeah, but it's kind of like, I guess, like Jaws 2 and Jaws 3 using certain variations on his themes.
Yeah, I did notice it, like, it's basically they're trying to remind you, remember, this is Star Wars, isn't this awesome?
Yeah, there were, and now I want to get into the stuff that really disappoints me, is that people are going to ignore this movie, and it's going to kill off the franchise, and this is the movie people should be watching. If Last Jedi pissed you off, if you didn't like Last Jedi, if you hate it, then avoid episode 9 if you don't want to see it. But I would see Solo. I mean, I came out of there feeling great. You know, I mean, it was like I felt like I was actually watching a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, when I was watching it, I was actually thinking of like my mom and dad would love this movie because they're old and they're confused, and they would watch this and they would understand what was going on. They would like the Han Solo. They would like the explosions. They would like the action and the adventure. So on that level, I enjoyed it on a technical level. Like if I was going to give this like say a 1 to 10, I'd probably give it like maybe a 7 or an 8. Maybe split the difference and give it like a 7.5. I actually really liked it.
I would, it goes on my ranking. It goes number 4 on the list. Number 1 would be Empire. And number 2 would be Force Awakens. Number 3 would be A Star Wars: A New Hope, and number 4 would be Solo.
Okay, you want my list?
Go ahead.
Okay, Empire Strikes Back. New Hope, Last Jedi.
You put Last Jedi ahead of every. Oh God.
Return of the Jedi, then this, then Solo, then let's see, then Attack of the Clones. Although I'd have to go back, not Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith. I'd have to go back and really, because it's been so long since I've seen them. But they're very close. Like it's very close to say between. Return of the Jedi and Revenge of the Sith, it just like fits right in there. And then I put like Attack of the Clones, then Phantom Menace, and then I put Rogue One at the bottom.
Rogue One improved with age for me.
Yeah,
it absolutely did.
I still have my because this is
because I felt like they were doing a Star Wars story and they injected fresh elements into it.
No, because here's what I thought is the difference between this and Rogue One is. Rogue One is 2 movies stitched together, whereas this is one solid movie.
Well, I don't know. It's strange that you say that because I looked at a lot of reviewers and people on YouTube, and they were saying they could swear they saw where the original movie that was being worked on ended in Ron Howard's movie. They saw Solo as being a Frankenstein job of 2 different movies. For several scenes.
It had a good flow, except for the end. There were some pacing issues near the end where it's like you have the big action sequence when they do make the Kessel Run, and then the whole movie just slows down for the last 20 minutes and goes into like.
Well, where they saw it was in differences of cinematography. They noted that
might have been
some of the.
I'd have to go back. I mean, we can talk about the technical issues of like. You saw it at RPX. I saw it in a Dolby Cinema, but we in both theaters. I guess they upgraded your theater to Dolby Atmos. So, and I was kind of more near the back than I usually am because the good seats in the middle were not available. So I got a good seat in the middle, but more near the back. But I kind of liked it because even though the screen was slightly less enveloping, the sound itself, I was getting more of a surround presence. Mm-hmm. And especially we were talking about like, you asked me if I saw the trailer for the Queen movie?
Bohemian Rhapsody, yeah.
Man, the sound, every trailer was like, seemed to be mixed either in Atmos or it was like up mixing it or something.
It was
the
sound
wrapping
quality.
around me and
Did you see the same trailers I saw? They showed a trailer for the Rock movie Skyscraper. They showed
I was coming in as that was playing.
A trailer for Fantastic Beasts, which is what
I saw that looked decent.
Bronwyn and Regan want to see that one because they're fans of that thing.
They did a thing right before.
Oh, and Crazy Rich Asians, something called.
I did not see that one. I probably would have offended everybody here. But I did see in this. I think it was a special Dolby because it was kind of like it started with like the Dolby logo.
Oh, and The Incredibles, the Incredibles sequel.
I saw that. Yeah. It started off with like a Dolby logo, and it was like a section of the movie the new Jurassic World movie. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It wasn't just a trailer for the movie. It was like a section of the movie, and it was like fully mixed, I think, in Atmos. And that was really awesome. And then the movie started, and it's like, this is what I liked about these theaters. They crank up the sound.
What I love is that I have my seats. You got the tickets. We can take our time. We don't have to there was lines and everything, and so you just walk. You can take your damn time.
They really have that problem. There was maybe 20 people in my theater. They were just all in the middle.
The place was packed when I was there, which was really strange. Okay, so I feel. I mean, I know you probably don't feel this way, but I do feel that that they're being punished for trying to tell a story. I feel like, I mean, because I don't understand. You look at the numbers of Last Jedi, and I'm just like, watch. Last Jedi was a mess to me in so many ways. Editorially,
it was Star Wars fatigue.
It had plots that don't go anywhere. I mean, almost everything in this movie served a purpose.
Well, I think it's a combination of Star Wars fatigue. They should have. I don't know why they did this, but they have Star Wars is Christmas now.
Yeah,
They stupidly put it in a summer. And remember,
but I mean, like all of the other movies, with the exception of the most recent ones, were all released in May. I mean, the end of May
they were May. Yeah, I know, but see, the movie theater, the movie experience has changed. The competition. There were no. I mean, there's basically a Star Wars coming out every week now. Big, huge, massive budget Hollywood movies every week. It wasn't like that then. Everything was, I mean, a Star Wars would come along every few years. And so what's its competition? Let's see. A month before Avengers came out, that's still making tons of money. A week before Deadpool 2 comes out, that makes a ton of money. It has competition. And it's these big movies. It's like, you got competition, and then movies are going to come out that are going to be big competition.
Yeah.
Jurassic World is coming out.
It's just that you think with a Star Wars movie, people would flock to it because of
people are sick of it. We need a break. We need a refractory period.
Well,
and we needed it.
We got until next.
We have a year and a half now, which is smart.
Next year and around Christmas time, I guess.
Christmas 2019.
They're not going to do this again. They're not going to try this May experiment again, I don't think.
They shouldn't have. But Christmas is perfect because movies now, they make more money around Christmas now because you get that family audience. People going to movies. Now, you could say that like The Last Jedi. Last Jedi actually opened up a little bigger than they thought it would. They thought it was going to do, like when it opened, they thought it was going to do like 205, ended up doing like 220.
Yeah, 220 opening weekend.
It wasn't the biggest opening ever, but it was close. And also, Force Awakens was like such an event that there was no way they were going to top it. It still, Last Jedi still made like about 2/3.
This is true.
About what Force Awakens made. That was generally what they expected. Whether the reviews, I got to tell you, and maybe it gets bad reviews from a few people. Most of the people that I've talked to that have seen it, they love it. You're kind of in the minority of people that didn't like it. So there is a disconnect as far as The Last Jedi.
Maybe the people you're talking to, yeah.
However, a lot of people about Solo, they're saying they like it. Maybe people are just sick of Star Wars. They're like, well, it's becoming more common.
I kind of, I felt after a couple of days after Solo, I want the Millennium Falcon. And I want action figures. This movie makes me want to buy action figures. Last Jedi didn't make me want to buy action figures. I don't need a Rose Tico freaking action figure. I don't. I really don't. I wanted action figures. I want this Millennium Falcon. It's fucking expensive, but I want it.
You want the new one with the special pod attachment so you can take it off.
You can take it off. You can actually you can take off the top portion of it because it only looked that sleek and streamlined because it looked brand new because it was Lando's. Got a lot of damage and it winds up looking like the Millennium Falcon we all recognize. I
actually had a Millennium Falcon.
So you can remove that. You can remove that whole top piece and make it look like the actual Millennium Falcon. Unfortunately, it's a little too small though. These figures are too big for the ship.
I had a Millennium Falcon up until recently when I just sort of sold off it was all beat up. It looked kind of like the Millennium Falcon at the end of this movie.
Yes, I had the Millennium Falcon. I think it cost $50. I think it cost $50 in 1982, which was pricey.
That'd be like literally like 3 times as much now. Yeah. So, jeez, I wouldn't.
And now you look at it on eBay, it's like thousands of dollars for this fucking thing. So,
man, I honestly, I mean, kids are great, but man, I would not spend $150 on a toy for a kid. I mean,
I remember my mother being extremely pissed off having to buy that for me because she said you can have the Millennium Falcon if you bring home 5 straight A+. So I did. I actually did, and she was
there's motivation
pissed off to have to spend money.
I got mine. The funny thing is I got mine accidentally early. My parents, wisely, they were smart, but they were stupid. Where here we'll before the Christmas rush, they bought it in August, but then they hid it. But they hid it so poorly. It was literally like in the garage on a top shelf, and I could see it.
Right.
And I'm like, I think there's a Millennium Falcon there.
Man, you know, had I known what I know now, I would never open up any box, open up any of the action figures, buy duplicates, maybe have stuff to play with, and then have like, because especially in the in the mid '80s, they were like clearancing all of this stuff, and it was going for really cheap. You could buy like a whole bunch of figures, and just
we would see. This is a good lesson of, you don't want this to be the end of the '80s when nobody cared about Star Wars. You need to give it a break. You don't want to over hype it.
Well,
just let it rest.
They have to do Episode 9, obviously. That movie's probably already in the can. They're working on visual effects right now.
No, it's not in the can. They haven't even started shooting.
You don't
yet.
think they've started? I think they
about
started
to.
shooting footage for it when they were working on Episode 8.
Well, they may have extra Carrie Fisher footage that they might use.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Who knows what they're going to do with it?
So that's obviously going to be released next Christmas. People will have a long time to decompress. And then after that, maybe take 10 years off.
I don't know if they can take 10 years off.
Why not have Ray come back as like a slightly
See, that would be
older
awesome,
person?
but I think their plan needs to change of, maybe they will. Maybe what they'll do is...
Problem is, Last Jedi didn't answer any questions. It didn't tie up any loose ends. It didn't give us
Neither
fresh...
did Empire Strikes Back, my friend.
But it didn't give us like a fresh, like something fresh, some kind of closure. Instead, it left more frustration than anything. They're going to have to, but they're going to have to wrap this up in the third movie, and I don't know how they're going to do that without making it some kind of an editing nightmare. You know, he wasted a lot of screen time at that stupid casino planet that could have been used, you know, and also, I mean, like, just the whole frustrating factor of dealing with Laura Dern's character and all that stuff.
Would you prefer Ewoks?
But the problem is you have a character that's still alive where the actress is dead, and then you have two characters that are dead but the actors are alive. What are you going to do? How do you figure that shit out? I mean, it's just I don't know.
Magic.
I don't know how they're going to do that. It's not a.
They'll use the Force.
The Force. Okay, whatever you say. Anyway, to just wrap up everything here. Great movie. I recommend. I can't recommend it more. If you are a pissed off, discontented Star Wars fan, this will cheer you up. I mean, it cheered me. It made my day.
Well, as someone who loved The Last Jedi, I also really liked this, and I can recommend both. It's just be prepared for a different kind of movie. Be prepared for a different kind of movie. This has most. You know what this has as far as spirit? This has the most spirit sort of in common with the first A New Hope. I would say it's the most sort of freewheeling adventure kind of movie of like
it's very it has a very freewheeling kind of.
It's got fun. It's got on. It just assumes you know the universe.
And there is a lot of humor in it. You said something about cutting out all the humor or something, but there's a lot.
No.
There's
At
a lot
the
of humor
end,
here.
at the end, it's more like here's what it is. It's like it's fun, it's adventure. But when I'm thinking of like Lord and Miller, I'm thinking they might have just been wanting to do an all-out comedy, and I wonder if that could have been better. I don't know. It would have given it an edge that it doesn't have. It doesn't have an edge. It's like it's solid entertainment, but it doesn't have an edge. And I'm wondering if the comedy aspect of it maybe gave it an edge, because like 21 Jump Street, 22 Jump Street, Lego Movie, those have an edge.
Yeah, but I think for my money,
irreverent
Night Shift, Splash, and Gung Ho were far funnier than those. I think Howard, his gifts are in his comedy more than anything.
Have you seen The Dilemma?
No, I have not.
Hey, Vince Vaughn, Kevin,
and you can't go wrong with Clint Howard. He's everywhere.
I missed half of it. Like as I was walking,
we just started rewatching. We just started rewatching Arrested Development, and I saw an episode with Clint Howard in it, and I was like, "Of course, Clint Howard's in this."
Yeah, my mom has started watching Arrested. She's like, "Have you seen Arrested Development?"
It's like one of the funniest shows ever in the history.
She
of
loves it, so maybe I'll get to it. Yeah.
Yeah. By all means, it's on Netflix. You can watch it from the beginning. It's a fantastic show that got bad ratings and was canceled before its time. And it's a lot of fun. It's narrated by Ron Howard. It's produced by Ron Howard. It's just it's a very, very good show.
My concern about this movie is somebody's going to have to take the blame for this movie. Kathleen Kennedy, and she's in sort of she's in the not to cross reference, but she's in a bit of a Kobayashi Maru situation. There was no way to win this. She's going to get the blame somehow. I hope, because Ron Howard needs a hit, and this will make more money than most of his movies.
Yeah.
But this man needs a hit, and he keeps cranking out flops.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for him. And he's
I think he did a fine job. If they had to fire these two and then bring him in, I think he did a fine job of.
And who I feel worst for is Alden Ehrenreich, the young Han Solo, because he's good and he's decent, but it's on his shoulders.
Yeah.
And this could really affect his career in a bad way. I would suggest to him, lay low for a while, do some art house movies. Do some smaller films. Don't burn out. Don't take drugs. Don't go bad. Don't go all full Shia LaBeouf on us, please.
I cool. do. He may pop up again in if they do another Star Wars story that takes place earlier.
Oh, I don't know.
But there were two more things I forgot about. Okay,
yes.
Well, one was the whole Lando pansexual thing. That was horseshit. Okay, he's not pansexual in this movie.
They hint that he does the robot.
No. The robot was very interesting. L3. A lot of people hated this robot because they saw.
I liked her.
They saw L3 as an answer to Last Jedi's strong female characters. So they give this robot a female personality. It goes and it liberates all the slave robots on Kessel, and they make her kind of kind of proto-feminist in a way. So they saw her as an answer to that. She didn't really bug me. I thought it was rather sweet when the robot is dying. I don't want to spoil it for you, but the robot.
We've already talked about the whole movie.
Got smashed up to pieces, and Lando's cradling the pieces of L3 in his hand. It's not meant to be This is horseshit. What the whole thing came from was John Kasdan, Lawrence Kasdan's son, who co-wrote the script with him, was just being flippant, saying, trying as much as you can to get an audience in there that might be weird, so that maybe they'll grab onto this movie and make it a hit, like so many different things do. Kind of like the crying game philosophy. So he's like, yeah, Lando's kind of a pants. He's kind of like, he's Lando Calrissian. Why not? Even though we know Lando is pretty much straight up. I mean, he just tends to be that way. And Donald Glover does a fine job. So Donald Glover grabbed onto this piece when he's being interviewed, and he says, I don't know, maybe. But he said it kind of flippantly. He was being kind of a smart ass about it. There's nothing to worry about. There's no robot he doesn't make it with Chewie or anything.
They get like reporters from, I guess, like quote unquote alternative, which are actually just part of the whole infrastructure, and they come in and they're all weird and they're like sexually confused, and then they ask them, like, could they be pansexual?
It's just the silliest thing in the world, because this is Star Wars. For crying out loud.
He could be whatever, okay, and then somehow they sort of change that into like he is pansexual. It's like, whatever.
This is Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars is it's got elements of romance in it, but it was never about the romance. It was always about the adventure, and that's where I feel Solo succeeds. It succeeds in the adventure. That's really what it's about. And yeah, there's romance in there between him and Amelia Clarke and all that. Unfortunately, I mean, like, Thandie Newton is really underutilized for her part. I mean, she is a name, and they've got her in there for like 5 minutes, and then she dies. Woody Harrelson.
She comes in so that Woody Harrelson can like grieve or something, but you don't give him much to do, and then he ends up dying anyway when he shoots first.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
So it all comes back full circle to Han and Chewie and getting him on the Millennium Falcon and having him do it. And I think it was good. It felt, I was kind of shocked when you told me that the running time was 2 hours and 15 minutes, because it didn't feel like 2 hours and 15 minutes. It felt like 90 minutes. It felt like the quickest movie. It just kind of went by for me. It did not drag the way Last Jedi does. And I think that the reason for that is in the editing.
Maybe.
Because Last Jedi just, seemed like so... But even Force Awakens seemed longer as I was watching it than Solo did.
They're both about the same length, I think.
Yeah. Some movies, but, you can watch a movie... If you're not enjoying it, it can go on forever. And if you're loving it, you don't want it to end.
And I'll defend The Last Jedi until the end of time, because I loved it.
All right, fine.
But I'll also say that this is a good movie too. And if you don't, it's kind of like I said before, like, if you like The Last Jedi, you can still like this. And if you didn't like The Last Jedi, you might even like this more, because it's a different kind of movie.
Right. Okay, so that's about it. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
All right.